The whole thing goes, the future's not set. There's no fate but what we make for ourselves. Here's your look at the new NECA Toys Terminator 2 Judgment Day. This is John Connor with Motorbike. Three billion human lives ended on August 29, 1997. The few who survived the nuclear fire of Judgment Day lived only to face a new nightmare: the war against the machines. In their effort to eliminate all remaining humans, Skynet sent two Terminators back through time. Their mission to destroy John Connor, the future leader of the human resistance. The first programmed to strike at his mother, Sarah Connor, in the year 1984. Before John was born, it failed. The second was sent to eliminate John when he was just a child. As before, the resistance was able to send one lone warrior to protect the boy. The only question was, which one would reach him first? Now, before getting this review underway, the first thing we're going to do is measure off to the very top of John Connor's head. He does appear small, but in actual fact, if you look at the tape measure, he's still a 6-inch tall figure. He just seems really small, doesn't he? Switching that over to centimeters, however, John Connor stands 15.4, about 15.5 centimeters tall. For a couple of size comparisons, we'll have to, of course, bring in Terminator. Good old Arnie. I've got a couple of versions here. Now, these are the original releases. These are not the ones that have the articulation in the legs. I've got those somewhere in storage, but it was enough to at least show you the height difference between them. I almost even feel like John Connor could still be a little bit shorter still. But that's what they look like side by side with the figures. Now, keeping in mind as well that the articulated leg on the new Ultimate Terminators, I think, are actually a little bit higher still. But I feel like John probably could even still be a little bit shorter. I have to admit, John gets some pretty cool accessories, really film-specific accessories. Why don't we start with one of the coolest aspects? He actually comes with his little data link portable laptop. Actually, this is a 1989 Atari Portfolio, the thing that he uses in the movie. He, of course, uses it to go into the bank machines, the instant bank machines on the outside, and withdraw cash. A nice little representation, though, I have to admit, of the Atari Portfolio. Really neat that they would include such a thing. I would almost feel disappointed, in all honesty, that they didn't include that. Attached is what looks to be a parallel cable, and then that just slides, of course, into the opened slot where you insert your bank card and instant moolah. One thing also that's neat about it is that the keys appear to be tactile. Something of which you can, it looks like you can actually, like they've sculpted those in, simply not just putting a label or a sticker on there. So really nice job. I don't really know specifically where I would store this when I wasn't displaying it with John Connor. I mean, it would be neat if the backpack could actually open up. It's not simply the case, though. You can't open up, you can't put that in there. I guess they could have put a little slots on the back of the backpack. Just a possibility. But he does come with that. That's pretty cool. I have to admit, I like that a lot. The other thing he comes included with is the remnants of the first Terminator that was sent back in time to kill Sarah Connor. Of course, the big thing in the Terminator 2 movie is the fact that one thing, you've got T-1000 scoping out and wanting to kill John Connor, but also they also wanted to go to Cyberdyne, a Cyberdyne Systems Corporation, where they had to stop Miles Dyson from basically creating what would be the Terminator. And what he uses, though, kind of as his kind of inspiration, I suppose, to start the computer system. Right? Basically, all the technology was kind of derived from the cybernetic arm and then the smart chip that was retrieved from the 84 Terminator. So, again, really cool that they include this. No, it's not something you can smash. It's not glass. It's plastic. And again, a nice little representation that they would include that with John. And then the last thing, I mean, certainly for a size standpoint, it is most definitely the largest of the accessories that come included with the figure. You get his motorcycle, which is so famously done in the beginning of the film where the T-1000 is scoping it out, that epic scene in which the truck burrows its way, smashes its way through the top and lands itself down in that one ravine area, which is really a common go-to place where many Hollywood films have been shot. The motorcycle, let me go ahead and just take this off, does come with a display stand, kind of little support strut, if you will. There's a hole on the bottom of the motorcycle and it just wiggles into place like so. And you've got something that at least can keep the motorcycle up. I tried to do a little bit of research as to what kind of bike this was. I think the most popular opinion was that this was a Honda XR bike, but there's kind of some speculation that they might have tweaked and changed the bike a little bit. It's done pretty much in the same color scheme as the bike in the film, right down to the fact it's got some scuff marks there on the front section that is white, which actually isn't even so much white. It almost seems like it's got it's a cream color, but it's almost got like the little hint of pink to it. You can clearly see it looks like John's probably have painted this bike himself. Quite rather proud of himself. As a result of that, the paint is rather crude, but crude in actually an accurate way. Right down to the fact it's got the little scribble on the side, on both sides, where it looks like he's corrected and changed out whatever was the logo there initially. And some dry brushing of black paint has been added to the top seat cushion. The bike has some posability to it, and as you could probably guess it too, or maybe you didn't guess it, let me fill that in for you. He does have, or the bike does have spinning tires, and you can also put up the kick stand. All in all, like I said, not a bad looking bike at all. When you do put it on a surface, for example, it doesn't sit completely flat, or what I've seemed to find completely flat to the surface. The tire sits just a little higher from that. Would have loved also if they could have found a way to give us a secondary one of these. Let me just show you what I would be talking about. If they gave us a second one of these, which it would have been angled like this, but then, so if you imagine here, the post would be bent like this, but this part here would still be flat. That makes sense? If you attached it then to the bike could sit on an angle. I would have loved to see that too for displaying the figure. When you do put John onto the motorcycle, we're going to go ahead and just move his arms up, and we're going to move his legs up. You just kind of fit it over top, as you normally would with a motorcycle, just kind of fit him onto the seat. The legs, sometimes you have to just kind of move out, just get those out of the way, and then you can get his hands over top of the handlebars. The thing about the hands, though, is there's so many things that are fragile about this motorcycle. For example, this section right here, the hoses, for example, as well. So you want to be really careful when you are putting John's hands on the handlebars that you don't break anything in the process here. Realizing it would be so much easier simply just to pause the camera, I actually just did it behind the scenes. You can see, again, his hands clamp very easily onto it, but it does involve prying the fingers away from the palm to get them over top of the handles. And then as you can see, John sits right on top of the bike. Now, again, the bike can freely move, not that it would hold itself. And then again, there's the kickstand. I don't personally feel too confident sitting the bike's weight and the figure on top of it on this very spindly, thin plastic kickstand. So instead, rather, even if you want to utilize the kickstand to look like he's parked his bike temporarily, I would most definitely still use the clear post. Just attach that into place and take the much needed weight certainly off of that little kickstand. And that's what it looks like when you've got him on the motorcycle. It does really look quite good. Entertaining the idea of really displaying the figure either in this pose or just kind of displaying him standing next to Arnie. A couple of different possibilities there. So really, again, love the fact that they would have included the bike. I don't feel like NECA years ago, if they had released John Connor, wouldn't have released it with the bike. I feel like as the company expands and continues to play around with ideas, we certainly as collectors benefit from the fact that we get things like motorcycles included with John Connor. So I really like that. Just go ahead and take him off of the motorcycle. Just be careful when you, of course, are wiggling his hands off. So much of these things, the handlebar components, like I said, are a little bit on the more fragile. So we'll just take him off like so. There we go. I guess I could have paused the video for this, but I felt I didn't need to. And there is the figure. Now, the other thing that's neat about this particular release is the fact that they give you two head portraits. They give you the portrait that has the bandana with the hair draping, meaning the hair drapes to the side either way, but this one does also have the portrait that has that bandana. Really, again, nice little bonus to displaying the figure. To change the head simply just involves you popping the head off of the ball joint, which can, on this figure, I find be a little finicky. It still uses the same cylindrical post that NECA is known for. I guess it's just for the fact that you've got a smaller head that you're trying to wiggle off of the ball joint there. I don't even know by this point if we would still call them ball joints, because they're more like just peg joints than anything else. One thing also, as there's the close-up look at his face, seems like I got a little bit of paint or something onto the side of it. And again, there's the two different head portraits, both of which look quite good, both of which look like young Eddie Furlong, which we are apparently now getting also in the new Terminator film. That Edward Furlong, I'm sure he's quite happy to be getting work again, is going to be reprising his role of John Connor. One of the really missed opportunities I feel that Terminator 3 suffered from. I would feel more on board, I think, for Terminator 3 had they got Edward Furlong in the role instead of the actor that they ended up getting instead, which I liked him in things like Faculty, for example. And, oh no, it wasn't Faculty. It was Disturbing Behavior. Yes, one of my all-time favorite horror films. The actor from that, who I draw a blank currently thinking of, but if they had only gotten Edward Furlong, I think for Terminator 3, it would have felt a little bit more like a Terminator film. That's my own opinion. But there's the two head portraits. All the things that Edward Furlong would have done back in the day, like Pet Sematary 2, and he also did, I think, an Aerosmith, one or two Aerosmith videos also as well. Living on the Edge, that's what it was, Living on the Edge. So there's the two head portraits. I want to also draw your attention to the fact that he does have the backpack. Now, it does seem like the backpack is removable, and we can go ahead and just slide this off of his arms. It is a little difficult, being that everything is so small on it. Even like the straps of the backpack, you'll notice I avoided using the term knapsack. People don't seem to like the term knapsack, but you can take the backpack completely off of his back, but it is just a little on the difficult side, because you have to slide this off, and believe you me, it's a lot more of a nuisance to get back onto his arms. So I think for that purpose, I'm just going to leave it off. But you can see it completely is removable. It's just more of a hassle to get that back onto his arms, especially when you're utilizing very thin plastic for the straps. So for that reason, I certainly don't want to break the straps on the backpack, so I'm just going to leave that in place. For the rest of his outfit, he does have the long olive-colored military jacket, his black t-shirt underneath, that's not gray, and a pair of jeans, and also right down to his runners. All of which do look very much like it did from the film itself. A really great sculpt on all of this stuff. The fact that it's got like that natural kind of lazy drape on the side where his buttons are. This is like an oversized jacket, so it does really look like it's an oversized jacket when it's sitting on his shoulders. Even like natural wrinkling forms on the t-shirt in places where wrinkles from a shirt draped on a torso would naturally sit. There's a very noticeable ab crunch. Not really much they could do to hide that. Jeans are a nicely kind of aged look. It's not like a bleached jean or an acid wear jeans. So many vintage things to be thinking of while this review is underway. And then, of course, like I said, he's got his vintage runners happening right there. Just an all-around really great looking sculpt. A little bit of blue paint there on the side of his shoes. Other than that, though, very, very happy with how this one turned out. I don't know what it is. I'm feeling more compelled the longer I look at it to swap his head back off. I'm just going to take that off of that peg joint. Once again, a bit of a struggle. I'm going to put on this head sculpt. If you feel most inclined to display him with the bandana, you can, but I just almost picture more so John Connor always without the bandana when I imagine him in Terminator 2. So we'll just kind of resume the rest of the review with that the way it is. Just again, one quick look at his head portrait. So nicely done. sure Edward Furlong is thrilled for the fact that he gets himself an action figure now. And I mean, really, you could use this head portrait for the various different roles that he had when he was still a commodity in Hollywood. I'm sorry, Eddie, for saying that. Not so much the commodity now. Although, again, he's getting an opportunity to reprise his role of John Connor. So it is a very good day in the House of Furlong. Articulation for this guy, his head rotates all the way around, hinges up and down. I think actually back in the day, I don't know if I would call this a step cut or a bowl cut. I think I actually had a hairstyle like this when I was growing up. Just kind of an FYI. His head rotates all the way around. Probably not an FYI you needed. Up and down, and it rocks back and forth. Shoulders hinge outward. They can rotate all the way around. Just kind of be careful. Still be careful that this is thin plastic. You don't want to snag, grab, or rip that in any way. The arms do have a single bend in the elbow. They also do rotate. They rotate on their own independent joint here in the forearm section. There is his wristwatch. His hand rotates all the way around, back and forth. He doesn't come with any other swappable hands. Now I'm trying to really think to myself, would he necessarily need swappable hands? Of course, for his portable little portable keyboard, you could still make use of it with those hands. The only other thing he really would be a struggle to hold would be the actual endoskeleton arm, but I guess you really would have to have a really big, wide-spread hand for him to properly hold that. And I don't think it's really intended anyways for something that's going to be held by John Connor, more so just kind of displayed next to him. Getting ahead of ourselves, kind of get back on focused here. The ab crunch is still something that the figure possesses. We already kind of looked at where that sits on the figure. He does also have a waist swivel. Legs split out. They go forward. They go back. He has a swivel where the top cut of the thigh meets basically the joint in the lower torso. He does have a bend at the knee, which rotates the lower leg. And then he also has foot articulation, a hinge up and down. No toe articulation, just FYI in case you were wondering. And there's John Connor, a figure we have really wanted for years. We have wanted Sarah Connor for years, and certainly a Kyle Reese, and all of which have been made possible by the good folks over at NECA Toys. The one kind of missing thing, the one thing that really was missing from our Terminator 2 collection, Miles Dyson, yes, we could say Miles Dyson is missing also from the equation as well, was obviously John Connor, the focal point for Terminator 2. The whole reasoning why the movie exists is John Connor. And thank goodness, I think it was kind of worth the wait for NECA Toys to kind of fine-tune their craft. Just think this John Connor, if he had been released, say, 10 years or so ago, he would have had limited articulation and might not even have come with his trusty motorcycle. But it was worth the wait. Time sometimes is necessary to get a figure this good finally get released. While Arnie stands guard, John Connor makes off with some dude's money from the local bank machine. Classic. Might I also add, I'm thrilled for the fact that we did get the accessories that we did. I'm trying to think to myself, what else could John Connor have really come included with? I think to myself, maybe the little smart disc, that little chip that goes inside of Arnie's head. Maybe that could have been included, because after all, that was something else that was also stolen from Cyberdyne, but that's really, really small. Could they have probably put that inside of a case or inside that little holder cradle that the chip actually sits inside in the movie? Possibly, yes, but that ultimately would just lead to something else that would be evidently lost. And I've lost enough small things that NECA Toys have included with their figures. I really don't want to run the risk of losing that chip also as well. John Connor's got a great looking mold and great design to him, and I love the fact that he does also come included with his motorcycle. Something of which, again, I feel like couldn't have been released or a possibility had NECA Toys released this guy earlier. The time, like I said, was worth it, and the time was now for John Connor to be released. And like I said, I think it was well worth the wait. Eddie Furlong, I'm sure, was thrilled for the fact, like I said, he's got himself a John Connor figure. And even more importantly than that he's able to pay his bills because he's going to be in the new Terminator film. Oh, you're being so hard on Eddie Furlong. I don't mind Eddie Furlong young, but I've seen some later films that he's in. A couple have come to my mind, for example, like the Crow sequel was terrible. And he was also in a movie called The Cane, where he played somebody that had to walk around in a cane. And I don't want to say hilarity ensued, but the only hilarity came from the fact that I actually sat through and watched a movie called The Cane with Eddie Furlong. It was a terrible movie. Either way, we're getting sidetracked here. Great looking figure. Again, a big thank you, by the way, something which I didn't mention in the review, that the good folks over at NECA Toys were nice enough to send this my way. And send out actually a whole bunch of SDCC 2019 exclusives my way. So you can really thank them for the fact that we're having a look at these in the upcoming reviews and all the reviews that have happened before that. If you manage to pick up the Terminator 2 Judgment Day John Connor for yourself, let me know down below in the comments section what you think of the figure, or really just based on this review and this review alone. Now, if you want to go back and watch a whole bunch of the SDCC exclusives, or if your fancy is just to watch more NECA reviews, there's a playlist on this channel just for that. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, my friends, my colleagues of the mob, and turn on the bell notification so when future videos are coming onto this channel, you'll never miss out. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next time.